Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Education for Better World. I am your host, Abdi Lajavardi. I'm the CEO of Pro Education Group, and Education for a Better World is a podcast that we are sponsoring to bring in a variety of educators from around the world to share their experience and insight on how we can become better at what we do and how better serving our community. And today I have a dear guest with me, Miss and Professor Janelle Elias. So welcome, Janelle.
Thank you for having me, Abdi. So nice to meet you.
It is my pleasure, and thank you for taking the time. Janelle, my first question to everybody is, please tell me about your journey to this point. Tell me about where you were born, and how did you get to this point?
Excellent. Thank you for the question. I'm a first generation college graduate, so that's an important part of my journey and my reason for choosing to work in a higher ed setting. I actually grew up in rural Wisconsin in a very small community that later I've learned is an education desert without access to public higher education. And I moved out of that community to Arizona with my family, completed high school in Arizona. As a first generation college student, I found myself at a local community college here in Maricopa County and completed 2 associate's degrees, found my passion for teaching and learning at that community college, was an honor student, earned a lot of scholarships, was a peer tutor, and I thought I wanted to become a high school English teacher. So that was my goal at that point. And but then I fell in love with a soldier who moved us to Georgia, and I moved with him to Savannah, Georgia, and completed my bachelor's in Savannah as part of what's now Georgia Southern University, and pursued my English degree there, still with the intent of trying to become a high school English teacher. When we moved back from the military service back to Arizona, where our families were at, I was offered employment with University of Phoenix at the time, and took this opportunity to do advisement for adult learners. And their model was very much around adult online education in more workforce-centric areas. And I had an incredible experience working with the University of Phoenix for over 10 years, incredible mentorship, which really grew me and coached me, completed a master's degree with them in adult education and distance learning. Of course, they were pioneers in this space and disruptive innovators in online learning. So I learned an incredible amount there. I worked for the IT college, so I learned all about IT systems, project lifecycle systems, development lifecycle programming. I spun off a website design and development company. So I had a little entrepreneurship there as well. And then I helped them develop some curriculum in multimedia and visual communications as part of my master's thesis. So how exciting to build something as part of my studies that was contributing to my workplace. So it was a really beautiful work plus learn experience that I was able to have there at the university. After the program launched, I was able to become an instructor for associate's level and bachelor's level students seeking multimedia and visual communication skills. And I led many tech projects for the University of Phoenix. Later, I combined my love of English and my love of technology and started working in this accreditation space. So that was an interesting bridge for me, but I really liked highly technical things and translating them in layman's terms to others. So a big part of my journey has been about being a pioneer in distance and online education, in educational technologies, in adult learning, and then in IT in general. I'm able to apply those skill sets continuously in my journey. I came to the Maricopa Community Colleges, where I actually earned my first degrees and had been working with Rio Salado College here in Tempe. We're a 2-year public community college, and we're also a pioneer in distance education. So Rio has been offering online education for over 40 years. And I'm really excited to be here and contribute to that work nationally and internationally. And now at Rio, I teach organizational development, I teach entrepreneurship, And I most recently earned a position as Vice President of Strategy and Advancement. So in that portfolio, I lead institutional research and effectiveness, which includes accreditation and compliance. I lead marketing and institutional advancement, fundraising, alumni efforts, and all the PR and communication for the institution, as well as I lead the national effort. So we do strategic implementation, and I can use all of those tech background that I have and that full systems development lifecycle. I apply a ton of entrepreneurial mindset to these opportunities, and we pilot out a lot of innovations for the institution and then either scale them to our college, or in some cases, we scale those innovations to the full Maricopa community colleges. So of course, I'm just honored and privileged to serve in this capacity from that journey I had as a student in rural Wisconsin with the dream to become an educator. And now I get to do that every day and in so many ways. So very grateful.
Congratulations, and thank you for sharing that journey with us. But I like you, if you don't mind, first of all, before I ask anything else about education, I'm hoping that number of individuals that are watching these programs are actually on their journey about getting education themselves as the students, maybe working on their undergraduate, graduate programs, or different degrees and such. You are a first generation, university graduate or even associate degree graduate.
Both, yeah.
I'm sure you have had number of challenges. Everybody talks about their accomplishment, and that's wonderful. But I'm sure there has been challenges along the way.
Yeah, undoubtedly. So I'd
How
love
did
to
you deal
share.
with it? Please share and tell our audience, what are some of the things that has been instrumental for you to overcome those challenges, to be able to create this such a wonderful career for yourself, an accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so hard earned and it keeps me really humble because of my roots. But to your point, well, you don't know what you don't know. And so again, had I known some of the opportunities available to me, that funding could be available. I was a very high performing academic student, for instance, and an athlete. I probably could have maybe got some scholarships or been, seize some of those opportunities to a more traditional university experience. But I think my non-traditional journey makes me the leader I am today. The biggest challenge is not knowing what you don't know and not having people around you who can answer those questions or provide you proactive clues and hints about what kind of questions you should be asking. I did have that college counselor, but I didn't have enough, I think, support in knowing that there were more options available to me than just the community college in my local backyard. The interesting part, though, other peers of mine who went off to university seeking a more traditional 4-year experience, they typically came back to the community college, and really we valued the small classes, the practitioner faculty. And so I found in that community college, I was surrounded by people doing the jobs that they were teaching. And for me, that provided mentorship, which has been a critical part of my journey. And once I understood how to identify the people that I wanted to model after, I would identify them. And then I would be like fearless about asking them, what did you do? What would you do differently? What can I do? What should I be asking? What kind of support? So really building mentorship has been critical. And as I grew, I learned you don't wait for a mentor to find you, you seek them out proactively. So they were first those teachers, right, that I was getting exposed to in the community college, but their openness and willingness to share how they got where they got was what really helped me understand the pathway that I needed to take. They helped me make the 5-year plan. They helped me think of the end goal in mind and create an educational and career trajectory. Mentorship was a huge part of my success. At any given time, I might have 2 to 3 mentors for different reasons. And then I also mentor and coach others, often like 5 people at a time, because you learn a lot too when you're giving back to your community. So I think that that challenge of just not knowing where to go, how to navigate was very real for me. And the other one that's very real, and I think it's one of the challenges of higher ed, was how to fund my education. And I didn't know enough about financial literacy. That's something I really tried to give to others so they don't go into debt, but I took out student loans on top of earning a lot of scholarships, but I was going to pursue that end goal of completing at whatever cost. And so I took out some unnecessary loans and could probably have done that differently had I had some additional understanding in financial literacy. So I'm really passionate about helping others understand. Like, for example, we have dual enrollment programs now where you can start working on college when you're still in high school. And it's like you're saving money, you're saving time, and you're getting to your end goal of degree completion faster. I think those were some of the largest challenges I had, with just not understanding the total cost and where I was going to fund my education from, and then having to build a network around me. Unfortunately, some of the people in my immediate network didn't value education the way I did. And so they didn't have an expectation that a bachelor's degree was going to necessarily lead to a better career trajectory. But I'm really grateful that I proved that wrong, because I know that it's changed my life, it's changed the trajectory of my family, and it set us up for long-term success.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, I would tell you, mentorship is really important. I think mentorship for individuals, regardless of how old they are, having mentors is like benchmarking where you want to go.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and at the same time, it is important to give back. It is important to mentor others so you make their journey smoother and more successful. So having said that, I believe institutions, they need not to only encourage mentorship for their students and their staff, but they need to actually facilitate these, come up with programs and individuals and committees that can make that part of the institution. I think that could be a big, big help to any institutions. And thank you for sharing that, because truly, it doesn't matter where we are in our life. We always can benefit from a good mentor. And we do need to recognize there are others that require our mentorship and our time and help in order to have a better life. And in that regard, I asked you a question before we even started, our podcast, and that was about. And I ask people sometimes this question about, if you think about people that they have made significant impact in your life, uh, and how many people have there, and if you would share one of them, what it was and what did they do for you?
Yeah, I have many, as most educators would think of a list of teachers who really changed their life. I'll tell you a little story of when I was in 8th grade, and we had this exciting opportunity to do a play for the entire school and the community. And my school in that rural community went from kindergarten to 8th grade. So that was kind of the capstone experience, and you were like the seniors of the institution, right? And I tried out for the play, and I wanted to be like the lead actor role. And I practiced, and I thought this is my calling, and I was really good. And my teacher gently redirected me, because that person understood my skills, talents, and abilities probably better than I did myself, to go for the director, be the director. And I remember that encouragement and that motivation, and it wasn't what I thought I would be good at. I ended up excelling in this role of being the director and the back behind the scenes person. And it was one of the most pivotal experiences. I was later assigned to be the editor of the newspaper for the school, and understood these roles where I was more of the coordinator and putting out the planning skills and the visioning and creating a story. Were really leaning into my natural skill set. And so that resonated with me and really lifted me up to know I can write, I can edit, I can organize, I can publish. And then I pursued my bachelor's in English literature.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That I think is important for all educators to remember. We can have a profound impact on every students that we come in contact with. And we really is, that's what love of education brings many of us into education. And it is important for us to be mindful of the impacts our words or our action has with every individual. Doesn't matter, they're in elementary school, they're in high school or college, university, in graduate programs. We can make a difference, and sometimes words are the most powerful tools that you have. So thank you for sharing that with us. What I wanted to ask you next is about a professional mindset. Professional mindset is something that I think people have different definitions for that. So my question to you is, what's your definition of professional mindset, and how has that played a role in your life and your career?
Wow, that's really an excellent question. The first thing that comes to mind for me is respect. This idea of mutual respect for just human to human respect and interaction, and the diversity that each of us brings to a workplace. And so I'm lucky that I learned a lot of good professionalism skills with written and oral communication. And so I tried very hard to do active listening as like a constant practice. It's actually one of my secrets to my success, is my ability to be such an active listener. And I practice this idea of humility. No matter what role you play in an organization, I respect that role. I respect you and the unique talents and experience you bring, and everyone adds value. So I like to think of us all as adding value to the greater good of the organization. So respect, humility, active listening, and probably my fourth might be integrity. I'm a big proponent of doing what you say you're going to do, and that builds credibility and trust. And nothing can happen without trust, especially in higher ed, and how relationships are the key to get a lot of this important work done, whether between a faculty, a student, or administrator to administrator, et cetera. So building that respect, that mutual trust helps us work together in powerful ways. And so those are some of the things that come to mind most, but I really, I hold myself accountable to do what I said I was going to do. And as I have the opportunity to lead strategic planning and goal setting, now I get to help others learn how to hold yourself accountable and have that be more intrinsically motivated, because it's honoring what you said you were going to do and following through on the goal that we set for ourselves, our teams, or our organization.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Now, one of your roles that you have currently, or you had prior to this position, was working in accreditation. So, as a former commissioner with the accreditation agency, I have a funding for that. But at the same time, in institution, when you have the role as you have with accreditation, most individuals, they feel like you are stopping them from doing what they want to do. So how do you approach your position? How do you make it more something that is an added value to people within your team? And maybe you can provide some insight for colleagues that they have that responsibility, because we all have to live with certain standards, and that's why we get to be a school. So go ahead, please.
That's great. Yeah, I think I failed to mention in my journey, after I worked at the IT college, developing the curriculum and doing outcomes assessment, I then took on a role for leading institutional accreditation. And it was not a small role for the university that was national. There was over 65 locations, over 200 additional branch campuses. And so it was quite a large scale. And what I learned was what you said, is show the added value of the process. What I learned was active listening and identifying how the accreditation, continuous improvement, and quality assurance philosophies could be part of the design of something new. And then it wouldn't have to be a no when someone was launching a really great idea because we were part of the design from the beginning. So helping people understand, if you engage your compliance and accreditation experts at the beginning of the brainstorming and the ideation and the design of your new project, program, or idea, will actually add a lot of value and help you navigate something perhaps even more impactful or more scalable, right, nationally or even internationally. So in my experience, I often position compliance and accreditation as a service. And I've noticed that that kind of takes this compliance cop theme out of the way, and you're not leading with no, you're leading with how can I help you with the goals you have for your team, or where are you going with your strategies, and how can our experts in these regulatory affairs be added value for you. Once they understand that you have the expertise and the credibility of state, regional, national regulation, then they start seeking it out as a service. And I've been so grateful to see that shift at my current institution, where it used to be more of a compliance. We do this because of mandatory compliance reasons, versus we're going to engage that expert at the front end because they really know how to navigate this landscape. And so the institution could see the added value. The other thing I do very proactively is I use that educator mindset that, like, we're going to learn, there's new regulations or there was a change, be very transparent about the change and educate everyone I can about these changes, so that it's never me saying no, it's a regulation or a source or a legal reason why we might have a constraint. But we do so many creative things and we have such expertise that I value and honor your role in that capacity, because it's very hard work to flip that from a compliance headspace to more of a growth mindset and a process of continuous improvement.
Thank you. Because truly, I think all kinds of regulatory role, human resources, accreditation, or compliance of all kinds, sometimes how the individual approach and partner with the rest of the team makes all the difference in the world. Because if we are perceived as being the police, quote unquote, yep, then you have more resistance rather than a person that is there to facilitate and educate individuals for better result can make all the difference in the world. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, if I might add one thing too that you just reminded me, it's through that interviewing, that active listening. So I subscribe to, like, seek first to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. And you're right, it changed the whole tone of how a regulatory or compliance conversation might go, because I wasn't dictating how it needed to be. I was seeking to learn what their end goals were and helping them to get there.
Absolutely. Another tool that I've seen many people use in that capacity, accreditation, human resources, any kind of a regulatory perspective, it is to survey people every so often. That, where do you think your expertise lies in the various area, and where would you like to receive additional information and or training? Kind of gets people to keep these things more in their forefront,
Yeah, make it more relevant to, like, the job at hand, right? We did a lot of trainings around accreditation modules, and ironically, people say that it can be fun. So I work really hard to try to make the educational component engaging and fun, so you understand that it's an added skill set and knowledge base you can use to succeed.
Absolutely. The whole idea of the self-evaluation report is really a business plan. Really, I mean, I wish they called it a business plan, because people would embrace it more, because it shows you how a business can run, and it gives you all the ways to think of things that you may not have had the chance to do it by asking you different questions in different sections of the the questionnaires. They get you to think of what your system is, how do you approach it, how do you examine it, how do you improve it. So those things will allow individuals to ask those questions from themselves and collectively come up with a system that can answer those questions, and in a sense build a good business plan for the whole institutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a pride point, right? When you think of it, like let's tell our story and give examples of what we're doing to meet these criteria. We recently went through a 10-year reaccreditation, and it was an incredibly positive experience. And we had so much pride for the institution as part of how that can be framed in such a constructive way to move the organization forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my next question is in line with why people go to school, right? I mean, end of the day, they want to be like Janelle and they want to get a good job, right? So now you graduated, and what do you tell your graduates? You know, you're going out there. What are some of the things you can do to increase your chances of finding the right job that can, help people to gain that first employment, especially right after graduation? Some advice for individuals on how to do that.
Well, I'll actually use my 3 children as an example. I've learned you have to start younger than high school, right? I wasn't, as my own personal experience, wasn't thinking about these things until senior year. It's too late, really, to get a jump on some of these opportunities. So I have right now a 16-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, and we have very different conversations. And I think it starts in the home or hopefully with the family. Like I value their educational journeys. I'm very clear that they don't have to have a degree or credential. They might just want to learn skills. But I also am very clear that it's about what makes them happy. Right now, my 16-year-old thinks, what job is going to make me money? And that's where he's trying to add that as a criteria for his career goals. And I have to remind him that it's more about what's going to bring you fulfillment and what you enjoy doing and what would you do even if you weren't paid to do it. That's really how you have to think about your career goals to be happy and fulfilled, I think, and contribute in a positive way. Otherwise, I would be concerned you're kind of the motivator might be for the wrong reason. And that sometimes can do more harm than good if you have someone in an organization who's not there for the right reasons, right? So we have a lot of serious conversations about how they can get a jump on some college experience in high school through dual enrollment programs, the value of internships much earlier, even unpaid. I actually host a lot of interns in my current role. I'm considering doing what's called returnships for people who are later in life or retired and looking for some of that fulfillment, how much value they could add back to our institution. But for my own kids, I'm helping them navigate some fields that they might be interested in. And then we really talk through, let's interview someone who works in that field. And that's back to that mentorship. Identify someone that is the person you want to be 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, and talk to them, because you'll really understand what's it like to be a programmer all day long, or I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but what is it really like? And so I think that's extremely valuable. And in building that network, again, that sets them up for success, for potential employment opportunities, job shadowing, internships, the work-based experience. I think what was so special in my own journey was that I was able to work and learn. And this intersection is becoming increasingly important for higher ed and workforce. And how do we collaborate? But more than that, how do we integrate so that working and learning is part of an individual's journey? And so I was always very intentional about learning what I was working on, applying it in the workplace. The projects were applied and added value to my business. But then I was also getting college credit and then getting a promotion after I earned that next credential. So for me, that combination of being really intentional about experience plus credential is key, because people might just put all their effort into going to that doctorate level, but then maybe lacking some of the real world experience. I think that's really critical.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I can tell you, Professor Elias, this has been delightful to have you as a guest on our podcast, and
My
I would
pleasure.
definitely look forward to have you join back with us later on. But is there a last word you want to leave our audience with? Please share with them your thoughts.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I respect the work you're doing. Your tagline here, education for a better world, I feel strongly that that is about self-development. It's about individual growth. And so I respect what you're doing here, but I think the change has to start with each of us, educating and bettering ourselves to contribute to better communities, businesses, families, and that's how we're going to get to this vision of a better world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again.
You too.